Now let's play you guys the mixed version of the beat. That one just sounds so much more cohesive, so much more balanced. Nothing is too loud. Hello everyone, my name is Mine. In this video, we'll be diving deeper into the art of mixing music on BandLab. We'll be going over some of the fundamentals of mixing, some various tips and tricks that you can use in your sessions. I'll guide you guys through a beat I'm working on BandLab that I have mixed, and I'll show you guys how to make your sounds more clean and more cohesive. And that's about it. Let's get into it. All right, so we are here on BandLab Mobile, and I'm going to play you guys this beat I'm working on. First, I'm going to play it unmixed, and then I'm going to play the mixed version so we could just hear the difference between the two. All right, so this is the unmixed version of the beat. I'm going to go ahead and just let it play for a sec so you could hear it. Okay, so as you can tell, not very pleasant to listen to. I'm hearing a lot of sounds clipping and distorting. And now let's play you guys the mixed version of the beat. That one just sounds so much more cohesive, so much more balanced. Nothing is too loud. In certain cases, a producer will send out the beat to a mixing engineer, but you also want to make sure your beat doesn't sound crazy before you send it. So you want to make sure you have a good idea on how to mix things. So what is mixing? Mixing is basically the process of blending all your individual sounds in a track so that they sound more pleasing and more fitting in the stereo spectrum of your song. During the mixing process, you can start with anywhere from 3 tracks to 100 tracks that you all need to mix down. So mixing is really just like solving a puzzle, figuring out where each sound needs to go and needs to be placed. Mixing can also be an emotional thing, adding a distortion on a guitar solo at the end of a song or adding reverb on a clap. Without proper mixing, your track may lack some clarity or some punch or some nice low end or mids. You want to make sure you have a good grasp on the mixing process so you could take your music to that next level. All right, now that we've established a baseline for what mixing is, let's go over steps that you can use in your BandLab projects today to get a cleaner mix. Step 1, which is very, very crucial. It could be a little time consuming, but it is definitely well worth it. You have to make sure you organize and label all your individual tracks in your session. So here in the BandLab app, if you just swipe right from the arrangement view, you get the list of all the instruments in your track. So as you can see, everything is named and clearly listed. I have my drums, my sample, my 808, strings, and various other elements. So if you want to rename your track, all you have to do is click on these 3 dots right here and then click rename, and then you could change it to whatever sound it is. Also, you should arrange your track in a way that makes sense with the arrangement. So as you can see in this part of the beat, it's kind of like the hook, but I don't know why I have the piano all the way down here. So if you want to get that to go up, click the 3 dots. Let's click move up. Let's keep doing that until it sits where the hook is hitting. A couple more. There it is. Perfect. And now everything is lined up together where it needs to be, and it makes it a lot smoother when you're arranging. So make sure you organize your tracks in a way that makes sense for you and your arrangement. And if you're using the web version of BandLab, you could actually color code each individual track, which helps a lot during arrangement. All right, now let's move on to the second step, which is making sure you're setting your levels correctly. So I recommend setting the levels at the most dense part of your song, which is usually going to be the chorus or the hook. So that for me is going to be right here where I have the most elements playing. And it's best to set your levels in this part of the song because this is where it's going to be the loudest and most dynamic. So let's first identify the most dominant part of the song, which for me is this sample I got from the BandLab library actually, which sounds really good. So what you want to do is just click S to solo it so we can just hear it on its own. So here you want to make sure nothing's too loud. I could even maybe turn this down a little bit more. Unsolo to hear with everything else. That's sitting nice right there for me. So as you can see, I already set all my levels accordingly. And the way I go about mixing things is I usually like to have my drums be the loudest element of the song because I just want them to poke through and hit hard. So I'll have my samples and melodic elements turned down. As you can see, I turn my strings down a lot and my piano is also turned down quite a bit. But my drums at the top are the loudest thing in this song because I just want them to sit on top of everything. And once you got your drums sitting where you like, you could kind of start blending in all the other sounds in the track as well. Also, please make sure that your track isn't clipping. You want to give yourself enough headroom so you're not going over 0 dB. So as you can see, our meter never hits that red, which is perfect. But if I had this 808 too loud, let's say, I'll probably be hitting that red very quick. Let's give this a listen. Oh yeah. So that is way too loud. So let's bring that 808 back down. And as you can see, I have this 808 turned down a lot. It's turned down 13 dB. So you really want to treat this mixing view like you're in a real studio playing with the faders on the console. So start with your most dominant parts of the track and move on from there, adding in the elements surrounding it. All right, now let's move on to the third step, which is panning your tracks. This could give you a lot of clarity in your songs and a lot of stereo depth, which is always nice for the listener. So in this track, I have my strings panned hard left and my piano panned hard right. Let's just solo these two so we could give it a listen. So those two at the same time are just beautiful because they're in their own space. And this really just creates a nice stereo spectrum. It's very, very pleasing to listen to. It's also going to clean up your mixes down the line as certain sounds aren't going up the middle and clashing with each other. And let's move on to the fourth step, which is EQing for clarity and cohesion in your tracks. You use EQ to tame harsh frequencies and make sure different sounds aren't clashing with one another. You can also use EQ to boost certain frequencies you want. It is a very, very vital part in the mixing process that you need to have down. So as you can see in this track, we have a sample and I put an 808 over it. So if we listen to the sample, it already came with the bass line, so I knew that I needed to take out those bass frequencies when I added in my 808. So I went into the effects tab and I clicked on the logo next to the star. This is where you can open up all your different types of effects. So I threw an EQ on it and I took out 8 dB of low end to make sure I have room for when my 808 comes in. I'm gonna turn off the EQ and I'll just listen to how that 808 is clashing with the bass in the original sample. It's just muddy, it's not pleasant to listen to, so let's turn it back on and see how it sounds. See, now the 808 has so much more room to hit and you could hear it so much more clear and the two sounds aren't clashing anymore. So you want to make sure when you're working with samples, they usually come with some bass in it. So just take out some of that low end to leave room for your basses and 808s. And some people believe that the way to get your 808s to hit is to literally just turn them up, which is true in some cases, but the real best way to make sure your 808 sounds loud and clear is to EQ all the low end and muddiness from all your other tracks. So these strings also have a low end cut on them. If we turn it off, hear the difference. There's also kind of like a sharp high end I don't like in this, so we could go ahead and just take off some of that high end just so it's a bit smoother. So certain sounds might have resonances that aren't very pleasing to listen to. So this is where you need to make sure you come in with your EQ and get rid of all those harsh frequencies. And now on to the fifth step in getting a clean mix, which is controlling your dynamics with some compression. What compression basically does is, let's say you have a sample going throughout a song that at some points could get very loud, but other points can be very quiet. Compression will basically take those loud parts of the sample and the quiet ones and bring them closer together, making a more cohesive sound. This is why compression is used a lot on vocals, because vocals could be very dynamic. They could be very loud in certain parts and very quiet in others. So compression is there to make sure that things sound level. So if you want to add compression to your track, all you have to do is click the plus sign, scroll down. And once you get to the dynamics tab of your mixing presets, you'll get all the compressors because we're dealing with dynamics when dealing with compression. So I already have a compressor on these strings, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off and then on while it's playing so we can hear the difference. So this is with it off and on. See, very subtle, but really, really nice. You can also save the presets you create. Let's say if I like this compressor setting, I can just click the 3 dots up at the top and click save as, and I could name it too if I want. I'll call this string compression. And now I could just use this for all my strings later down the line. And I know looking at this is very confusing, but I'm gonna give you guys a brief rundown of how to work a compressor. So your attack is how quickly you hear the compression with the sound. If you're just starting out, I like to have a slower attack. So a slower attack would be more to the right, not to the left. I notice when people start using compression, they use it way too aggressively, which can create a really unnatural and just not a pleasing sound to listen to. You can also really kill the dynamics of your song when you overdo compression, so make sure to just keep it very minimal. Your release is how quickly the compression will ease off. So if I were to have a slower release with this sound, the volume would kind of start going like this rather than stay more leveled with the quick one. Your threshold is basically setting the volume for where your compression starts to work. So if I turn the threshold up a lot, it just gets way too quiet. I don't want that much, so let's bring it back to where we had it. Your ratio is how much compression you're going to be getting. For minimal compression, I recommend you leave the ratio from anywhere to 3 to 6. So I have it on 3 here, which is perfect. And then I just have a gain knob at the end to bring in some more additional volume after I'm done compressing. And yeah, it's pretty much the basics of compression and how to use it most effectively. So we've laid down some rules when establishing a good mix. Now it is up to you to just have fun with it and experiment. You can mess with things like reverb, delay, chorus, phasing. There's so many to choose from. So in the beginning of the track, I have this kind of like wind effect sound. Let's just give it a listen. Just really cool textural sound to just add some depth into the track. Let's go ahead and solo it and let's look to see what I added, because I think I added a lot of effects. So I have a delay on it, which is kind of just making it very spacey, very fun to listen to. So I'm gonna turn on the delay midway just so we can hear what it's adding to it. Crazy. I also have a reverb on this as well. Let's go ahead and turn it off and turn it on to see what it's doing. So if we were to turn off the effects with this sound, let's listen to it dry. And then with the effects, just gives it so much character. And BandLab has so many cool mixing presets to choose from. A lot of cool types of delay. Ping pong delay is super dope because it spreads it out from left to right, so it could be really cool in the stereo spectrum. So make sure to have fun with it, experiment, see what sounds good to you. So once you think your mix is ready to export, you want to go ahead and click at the top right, publish. I'm gonna call this beat Rodeo. Now let's go to our track, click this little arrow, and download. Also, make sure you do not forget to save your project when you're finished, but you don't have to stress about this because BandLab actually auto-saves your project every couple of minutes, so they got you covered. If you're trying to find all the auto-saves for your project, all you have to do is click on the right where it shows all your project libraries, click on your beat, scroll down, and then you could see it's been saving every couple of minutes. So whichever version you want to jump to, you can. And this is just super clutch if your phone dies, if your project somehow doesn't save. I don't know, so many things could go wrong, but this will make sure that you're good. So once you have your song downloaded to your phone, make sure to go ahead and listen to it in a bunch of different places, in a car, on your Bluetooth speaker, at your friend's studio, because yes, it does suck. Sometimes your mix will not sound as good in other places. So you want to make sure you listen to it in every type of environment so you could go back, take notes on what you didn't like, and eventually end up with something that sounds good across every system. And I think we've reached the end of the basics in mixing in BandLab. I hope you guys learned the fundamentals of how to mix your track, but most importantly, how to really take control of your song. Don't let the mixing process become too technical. Really use your ears and just experiment and do what sounds good to you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Happy music making. Peace.